You are now listening to Nexxlegacy Radio, a radio station for the people.
This is Charles, iambranded Madison of Nexxlegacy Radio, and I am here with a beautiful guest to talk to her about the book that she has out, her career, and everything else in between. So I had a chance to take a look at and read some of the excerpts about Wife by the Hour by Gail Treasure, and I am ready for this conversation, and I have beautiful Gail here right with me right now on Nexxlegacy. Gail, how's it going?
It's going great. Yeah, I live just outside of Toronto, and today it's a beautiful day. I had 2 inches of snow yesterday, and it's all melted and sunny, so it's good.
Sunny day on this day. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, Gail, before we talk about the book, Life by the Hour, and its availability and everything that a lot of the listeners who are listeners and supporters of what you do and new people who are checking you out for the first time, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you got started doing your thing right now, being an author, and your journey so far. So how did you get started doing what you're doing now?
Well, I am a school teacher, but I am retired now. So I've been writing all my life. It's just, I think it's like singing or painting or anything like that people love to do. But then when I retired, I just had a lot more time. So I, joined a lot of workshops, did courses and stuff to get better and better. I spent a lot of time doing research, and then I met my publisher, and it's been great. So it's really been a dream, because lots of people write, but they don't always get published. So I'm really excited.
Well, I always take my opinions, especially being an author and seeing what you do and how others do it as well. It is a semblance of like a Picasso painting or an art form in some way, shape, or form, where not only do you have the responsibility of writing a story, but you also have to develop characters too in your book or how you do it. So in the mindset of an author, as far as, if you love to write, I always wanted to get in the mind of an author, how do you develop these characters? Is it more on the go as you go, like day to day? You just don't know how it's going to develop until you really come to a conclusion about, specifics, or is it pre-planned?
There are 2 kinds of authors. So they call them plotters or pantsers. And so a plotter, knows when they write their first word what the end's going to be. And a pantser is somebody who, has a little kind of an idea, but the story unfolds, which is more like Stephen King says he's that way. And I'm that way too. Yeah. I have the characters, I have the place, I have the idea of what's going to happen, but then it's just so much fun getting into their world and, sort of meeting them and getting to know them and doing a lot of research so that then I can make them seem real to other people too. Yeah, sometimes characters are based on people I know or just people I've seen. But then it like my main character of Julia, the escort. I listened to a lot of escort podcasts during the pandemic, and there's one I really love. Her name's Exotic Vivian. She does the Sexy Escort Guide. She's just inspirational, just powerful, intelligent, so brave, really. And that was my inspiration for my character of Julia. But Julia has a different backstory than Vivian, obviously. But yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun. It's my favorite thing about writing is the characters.
Have you ran into any situations where you've suffered a writer's block, or you were not able to, you kind of started a piece and you just didn't really know what direction you wanted to go in some cases.
Yeah, that can happen. But what I like to do then is just go right back to the beginning of my work and read it through. And if I don't get a sense of, oh, now this is where I want to go, then what I'll do is actually just like watch a TV show, read a book, something that I really enjoy and find compelling, and say to myself, what did I like about that? And try to get inspiration from that. Because,
very
like,
intriguing.
you know, there are shows you'll flip through and you'll say, oh, that's dull, that's dull. And then there's another one that catches your attention, and it's like, well, why? Because of the danger, or because of the cool setting, or, so that inspires me.
I always find it intriguing, Gail, that, you know, especially with, you know, authors, you know, anyone that's creating something for people to consume, that there's a lot of care in a lot of what you do and how you do it. So, do you feel like sometimes you're very protective of the pieces that you create? Not guarded, but more protective because of, you know, who you've developed, how you've developed them. And, you know, there's an emotional attachment to a lot of what you do. Is that correct?
Definitely. And, like, I myself am not an escort. And when you write, like, I can't write everybody's voice. Authors are one person, right? Hopefully we've had a lot of life experiences. But when you're writing, like, a character who is in a group that's not you, like, you feel responsible. So I think the best, like, for portraying them in a positive way and in an accurate way, something that's, you know, believable, that they're not going to dislike. I mean, even if I write, like, a male character, and so what I do is, like, a lot of research, and to try to hear, like, the first people's voices. So, like, I listen to so many escort podcasts and talk to escorts, like, in person, and so that I could, because I feel responsible, but also very caring about their stories.
Gail Treasure is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. So let's dive a little bit deep into Wife by the Hour. So to me, it's reading some of the excerpts and a little bit about just the not just the process, who Julia is and can be. I think a lot of people are going to be, you know, caught in this web of intrigue by not just wanting to know more about it, but also wanting to know the journey that Julia herself, you know, finds herself in. So how did this come together, and how long did it take you to complete the book?
Okay, so I had when I was a teenager, I had the opportunity to go to France for the summer, and the group of people I went with, I didn't know anybody in the group, and I made a good friend, and we, at the end of the trip, we're sitting by the Seine in Paris and said, you know, even when we're old ladies, at some point in our lives, we're going to come back here and be here again together. And I haven't done that, but it's because I lost contact with that person because we didn't have Facebook and stuff back then.
Right.
But that all was something that was my very first inspiration for the story. And then I have written 2 other books, which aren't published yet, but both of them have the character of a teacher and the character of a sex worker. I just think they're interesting to put together as characters because they're both, like, you know, people who actually serve other people to a large extent, but one has chosen a really safe life and the other one has chosen a less safe life. And so I find that but then in this book, just when I was thinking about the characters, I made that teacher and sex worker the same character. So she's Julia is, in the beginning, she's a supply teacher and she's doing escorting for extra money because she's also a single mom. But so the girl who she met in France is, in my story now, in present time, the wife of Julia's last client. because Julia's decided she's going to teach full time and stop escorting. A lot of escorts do. She's done it for 10 years. And her last client walks through the door, and she realizes, just because she recognizes his voice from his wife's podcast, that he is actually the husband of this girl that she knew when she was in France, who,
wow.
you know, they had a falling out and they never did go back to France together. And so the opening scene is her talking to her agent, him coming in the door. They have their session, and then he's leaving, and she's like, and I'm 43 years old, and I've never, you know, this is the first time I've ever been in love. She falls in love with him right then. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling because I forgot the initial question. Oh, how long did it take me to write it? 2 years, because I wrote it with a book coach. During the pandemic, I would write, every 2 weeks I would write 3,000 words, and then he'd look it over, you know, give me encouragement and so on. So I finished that first draft in a year, and then I spent the next year editing it. And then contacting publishers, and then I met Rebecca, my publisher. Yeah.
Very interesting. Gail Treasure, my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio, and I again read I'm ready to read it. So, you know, will the people, is this available now? Is this available now for the people, or if not, when will it be?
Yeah, I think it's on pre-order until Tuesday, but it's released on Tuesday, April 9th. Yeah. I have a website, gailtreasure.com. You can go to Amazon or Rebooks, my publisher's website. It is, you know, it is, at the end of the day, it's a romance. It's not like, you know, it's got a little bit of a Pretty Woman feel to it, because, you know, like, she is an escort. It's a love story about her and a client. But there's the other backstory too, with Zoe, the client's wife. Another thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just another thing that I did in the book is, so Julia's challenge is that she, you know, is in love, and she wants Alex to leave Zoe, but she doesn't understand why he's staying married. And in fact, Julia is an escort to only married men, because she is an escort who didn't want to be face out. So her agent only ever, you know, sent her married men, so it was all very discreet. And so what she's doing now, because she's retiring, is writing this blog about why is it these married men stay married but come and see escorts, which she is kind of an expert in, because that's what she's been doing for all these years. And she's had like more than 600 clients. So during the book, there are little excerpts of just conversations that she's had with her various married clients over the years, and that help her to understand what it is about marriage that makes them want to stay married to their wife and go elsewhere for sex. So, like, for example, religion or money, like, those are reasons why a person might stay in a marriage and, you know, and see an escort. So by the end of the book, there are 7 reasons. You've seen these little conversations are stuck in, and she realizes what it is that's keeping Alex and Zoe together.
Wow.
That's kind of a mystery too.
Yeah, but, you know, you mentioned romance. You mentioned just, you know, there's a lot of conflict within. There's a lot of intrigue on both parties, because you talk about just, you know, how long she's done it. You know, I mean, to me, especially with love, you just don't know who you're going to. Love is love. So it doesn't matter where you are, what you do. It is what it is, and you're going to fall when you fall. And when you do, you know, how do you take the emotion into it? And it's conflicting on both parties, and it's very, I just can't wait to read it all. And the one thing that, you mentioned when it talk about Julia is just, how conflicted she is as far as, I hope this guy can return to love, but he's married. So how do I deal with that? And I think, this is a talk to real life conflict too when it comes to certain love, because there is real life situations where people are, are they in a marriage of convenience, or was there love but there's no more love? But then a person, male or female, might to someone else who might trigger not just passion but possible love that might come out of it. So this has a real life feel to it, does it not?
Yeah. Well, I had one of the reviewers, which was really nice, from the Manhattan Book Review, said, if you told me this was based on a true story, I'd believe it. So that really made me feel good. And oh my gosh, you're so eloquent. You just said that so nicely. Yeah.
But it's true. It's a lot of people are facing with a lot of different struggles within, or they have feelings, that they're either trying to hide in some cases, or can I reveal this? Because if I do, there's so many different ways of doing it. You mentioned Pretty Woman, but also this has a real life. It also has a soap opera feel. It also has who's gonna win or lose or both in the process. So it's I have so many questions. I just can't wait to read it. I'm super excited.
Yeah. Thanks. I think there's a bit of a parallel also between it's a movie at the moment, The Idea of You, because this is an older woman falling in love with somebody she shouldn't, and she's also a single mom of a teenager. So there's a little bit of that too.
And also it makes me think about. And Gail, I'm not sure if you've mentioned this in the book, and you don't have to comment on it, because I want to develop, like, Julia's development as far as, she's a single mom, but is there any backstory of, why is she single?
Yeah. And why she's a single mom is actually part of the story, because her daughter, wants to meet her real dad, and who was a man that Julia just had a vacation fling with. When she was in Mexico. And so her daughter is, struggling with, feeling like upset and disappointed in her mother for the fact that she's never been able to meet her real dad. And anyway, that is actually part of the story, is her daughter's story.
Wow.
As well.
Wow. Intriguing. People can go and pre-order the book now. GailTreasure.com is the website, correct?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
Gail Treasure's my guest on Nexxlegacy. Gail Treasure's my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. And you said it took 2 years and a book coach to kind of get this completed. When you finally put this to bed and you were able to, like, okay, I'm ready to get this out to the world, do you have the sense of, this is kind of like giving birth to a child? It's like you want to, again, I mentioned the stuff that you do, you want to nurture it, you want to protect it, you want to hold its hand before you let it walk. So, do you have a sense of not just relief, but a sense of accomplishment once this got out there for now the people to consume?
Yeah, definitely. But it was funny because that when my publisher, and this is not just my publisher, but this is so common. When she said she wanted to publish it, she gave it the name. That was not my name for the story.
Oh wow!
And I know now from talking to lots of authors that that's super common. Because, so the first name when I was working on it, it was just a working title, was 7 Reasons Why He Won't Leave His Marriage. But then that sounded kind of nonfiction. And then I decided to just call it Just Julia, because that's her escort name. And it's kind of a joke because, like, escorts can either do 2 things. They can either just make up a false name like Susie Smith, or I just made that up, or they can take an adjective and put it with a first name. So, like the one who I think is amazing, who's Exotic Vivian. And so I had my character do the adjective name thing, but she didn't like anything that went with Julia, so they just called her just Julia. And so that was my title for the book. But then, that doesn't really say much about what's in the book. So I think the hardest part for me, the hurdle, was seeing my story, which they only helped me, fix sentences here and there. Like, they didn't change the way my story was, but they gave it a different title. So the hardest thing for me was saying, okay, now it's my book and their book, because it's got this title, and the cover we worked on together. If I had done it myself, it might have looked different, but I think it's lovely. But so, yeah, that was probably the sort of giving birth part, the letting go, because I had to let it be in someone else's hands as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not going to lie, Gail. When I saw Wife by the Hour, I was like, oh, what is this? out of pure intrigue.
Sure.
Like, clearly where it says paid intimacy meets his match, but that's curious too. But the Wife by the Hour kind of stood out. Like, I was like, oh, what is this about?
Yeah.
And I think it's a win, because I think a lot of people are going to probably have that same reaction, like, oh, I need to know more. The curiosity of reading, because I'm an avid reader. So, anything that comes across my timeline, I'm going to, I might have to double take. And I did with this one, Gail, and I was like, oh, I need to know more. So, the letting go piece, I think anything, you should be commended for that, because, you weren't so hell-bent on, keeping things as you were. You were open. You were surrendering certain pieces of what you created to make it grow. And I think you should be commended for that as well.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'm sure every, musician is constantly taking feedback from people. Or like writers, you think of doing it less, because you think of us as mostly sitting by ourselves, but we do have editors and things as well that help polish the story. Everybody has their thing that they like best, right? Like, some people just love to just write and write and write, and other people like to have their messy first draft and go back to it, which is what I like to do. I like to know what my story is and then just polish it and make it sound better, add in more details and things. Because the story is set in mostly, Julia's in Toronto in the beginning, but they all end up back in France, in a little town called Saint-Paul-de-Vence, which is a medieval walled town. It only has 300 inhabitants, but it's full of art shops.
Wow.
And artists go there, like Picasso was there, Chagall was there. It's a beautiful place on a hill, and it's very close to it's about 12 kilometers from the Mediterranean. So that's where they are, and I spent one day of my life there. But in the story, Julia is there for like 9 weeks by the time. So I did a lot of research, and that was fun, just trying to make that place come alive in my book. So.
Very beautiful. Gail Treasure, my guest, Nexxlegacy Radio. And again, I always got to give my authors and musicians and, people that is creating something to pour out to other people, give you your flowers, because it's a journey. It doesn't take, 5 to 10 minutes or a half an hour, or 5 hours to complete something. There's a long, lengthy process that goes along with it. So when you hear and just a random thought, when you hear other people talk about how long it took them to write a book, but never had the courage to actually publish it, because there's people that I know that has like 2 books written within the last 10 years, but they're just afraid of themselves to be able to get it out there for the people or publish it. What do you say to those who are on the fence, in terms of getting it out there for the public. They want to do it, but they just are in a lot of cases afraid to.
I think that they need to realize that if they, like, people are afraid of rejection by agents or by publishers, but truthfully, agents and publishers want your story. Like, they don't make any money if you don't write a story, like a good story. So people are, because I know a lot of young writers, or, you know, old writers who are in the same position where they're just afraid of people saying no. So you have to be a little bit tough, because you're probably going to hear no a lot, but you're going to hear it said in a kind way, and also with feedback. And sometimes, like, an agent will say, well, you know, this isn't something I'm interested in, but I have a friend who is interested in this, because, like, everybody in the book business wants people's books to succeed, because we all want people to keep reading books.
Right.
So even though you can feel like a tiny fish in a big pond, like, truthfully, and, you know, you might think, oh, I just read Barbara Kingsolver's book, and who could ever write something that amazing? But we need stories all the time, and certainly we need people's voices, right? Like people whose voices aren't normally heard.
Exactly.
And when you put it in a book, it can last so much longer, your story,
Yep.
than if you just tell a few people, or, you know, even a TV show. Like, those things, you know, it might be popular for a while and then you don't have access to it, but that book is always going to be that book, and your words will last. You know, I got to see an original Shakespeare. I was in a library in Paris, and it was amazing. So it's like a historic documents library. We got to see like a Bible that was like super old, and an original Shakespeare, and just looking at it and knowing how old that was and how the words are still here, you know, like hundreds of years later. It's amazing. So,
who touched it? Who had their hands on it? Who gave it to someone else? Like, you know, when it gives me chills, because you're like, there's a lot of history that comes with, you know, some of the things you run across, and it's to me, I think it's a real good game to at least, you know, express that out there for the people who, you know, in my opinion, it's just the same thing as, like, you know, having a beautiful work of art that nobody sees. And why is it in your closet to be out there for the public? Because I always feel like this in journalism, or even in art, it's, you know, to me, if it's self-reflecting and expressive, get it out there. And I don't care how flawed it is. Nothing, you know, I had this conversation with someone before, because nothing that we do is perfect. But also, people should understand the passion that you have when you put out something or accomplish something, should be held with that high of a regard, with confidence, and, you know, everything else that comes with it. And, you know, I always tell people, just don't hide your truth. Just get that out there. That's important.
Yeah. Oh, you are so eloquent. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it can be scary, but, like, the more honest it is, the more people want to hear it. Because it resonates. Yeah.
And Gail, as I'm getting older, I just have no filter anymore. I'm not searching for perfection. You're either going to like it or you don't. But either way, it's coming out. So
right.
That's the way.
And, like, Julia says at the end of my book, you know, like, she takes a really pro-legalization of sex work stance in the book, because she feels it's the best way to keep everybody, like, especially the providers, safe. But even the purchasers, it's, you know, but she says, like, if you don't, because she's doing a little podcast at the end, she's like, if you don't agree with me, great, let's talk about it.
Right.
It's just so important. Yeah, for people to hear stories. That's why I did try to make it as truthful to how an escort could feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how their situation is,
Yeah. And I love it. I'm looking forward to all things when, pre-order the book now. Make sure you go to GailTreasure.com. Gail Treasure is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. And I'm going to throw a couple more questions your way before we let you go. But this one question I just thought of. And our radio stations, we play music. We celebrate art in a lot of different ways in terms of our station. So I've never asked this I've interviewed authors before, but I've never asked this before, so you're my first. So, Wife by the Hour, Paid Intimacy Meets Its Match by Gail Treasure. If there was a soundtrack to this book, what would that sound like?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. It's not that hard.
Okay.
There'd be some really fun, sexy soundtrack in parts of it.
I love it.
Jazzy, sexy soundtrack. But there also is a recurring theme of ABBA in the soundtrack, which kind of goes with the Riviera because
love it.
Julia's daughter and Zoe's daughter, because Zoe also has a daughter, end up becoming friends because they both love ABBA. So there's that too. There's that fun part, and I don't know. Some sexy jazz. But I don't know. That's a fabulous question, but I can't think of any other actual music.
Gail, as I was forming this question with my thoughts, I was thinking, I was like, Wife by the Hour. Like, what does that sound like? I just feel like there's a lot of it would be a nice mixed bag of a soundtrack with a lot of different sounds, not just jazzy. Throw a little bit of R&B in there. So you can throw a little bit of different genres of music within, specific things. Because remember, you wrote the book because clearly you would have remembered. But there's some tug of war with emotions when it comes to certain things, so it should capture that feeling of it as well. So I would reserve further thoughts as I'm reading the book and finishing it too, so then I can kind of figure out what the soundtrack would really sound like after its conclusion, because already my mind is already thinking, these thoughts when it comes to that. So that's my thoughts when it comes to it when I'm thinking about it.
I'll say, there would actually be because when they're in France when they're younger, my description of Julia is that she looks like a French model and singer, but I didn't use that. I didn't use that woman's name just because it's not great to use people's names, even though I say that she's gorgeous, and I kind of hope that people and French people would probably know who I was referring to.
Right.
But so there would be her music playing as well. So it would be French pop music from the 1990s in it as well.
There you go. I love it. Okay.
Yeah. It's a cool question.
Yeah. And the final question really is pertaining to just, the overall flow of reading, books, social media. Like, when it comes to, I always say, I grew up in the library. I feel like, always getting like just the paperback books are always great. Audio books are nice too, but, or Kindle books are cool. But, it's nothing like having a good book that you can be able to flip the pages to as well. What are your thoughts on that? And also, what do you think about just the social media aspect of reading? Do you see more of it, or you see less of it, or should there be more of a hashtag reading is fundamental type of thing, so people can start talking about reading a lot more now than they should before?
Yeah, that's a lot of things. I think that there is quite a niche on Instagram and social media of readers. But it's not, and who love reading, who are promoting books and so on, which is fabulous, especially for self-published people. It's great because they have ways to get seen. But I would guess that probably only maybe 5 to 10% of people engage with that thing, with social media about books. And as a teacher, because I'm a teacher, I think the very best thing you can do with your children is read to them every single day. And like, my girls are grown up, but I read to them like through high school. They would have to read Shakespeare, and we'd be reading it out loud at night before they went to bed. They'll still ask me to read to them. So that hashtag, like that, it should be out there, and it should be adults with children. And yes, you really, like, especially for children, you need the paper book in your hand, because you need to pause and talk, and you need to look at each other's faces and see where there's understanding or questions and things like that. For like adults, I really personally like Audible books because I like to garden or walk my dog. So I read, paper when I just want to fall asleep at night or, rest in the afternoon. But I listen to a lot of books as well. Yeah. But for kids, 100%, they need books in their hands and somebody with them talking about the books. And then you have a lifelong reader. So how did you get to become such a, like, you said you grew up in libraries? Who took you there?
Well, not well, say that because, it's like walking to the library or the library card was real active in my household. And I think it's big for, those days of when you were younger, you used to just go walk, 2 blocks to the library to go check out some books and things like that. I love mystery books, Encyclopedia Browns. I'm not sure if you remember those kind of books, but those are the ones I remember growing up wanting to check those out. And, there's so much history with, the relationship that I had with like specific libraries. And that's why that's why it's important. Those moments that you can, and those opportunities that you can be able to have to go check out a book just so you can read it. Not just because I had a homework assignment to do, just because I just wanted to read. You don't hear about that stuff days like they used to. And I think it's important not just to be able to kind of bring it back, but what you said was very, very important as well. Like, read to your kids. Read to your kids. Let me say it again. Read to your kids. It's the same that I feel about just having family moments at the dinner table. We don't have it as much as we used to, but we should, because those open dialogues and conversations we should have is very important to, at least to me these days, because that sense of connection that you got to have with your family and or friends, to me, I think it's super important these days. So, tying this all together just makes sense. And I think, the tradition of bringing some of this back, in full circle means, everything to how we communicate to each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. There's so much power in a library in being amongst all the books. It's like, it's like being in nature and, being surrounded by the trees, and that's so amazing. But like, actually not just having 1 or 2 books on a table, but being in a room that's dedicated to books, and for kids to know that there are rooms, buildings like that are important because they hold all these people's stories and thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah. I want everybody to go to GailTreasure.com. Make sure you go ahead and pre-order Wife by the Hour by my beautiful guest, Gail Treasure. Find her on, and I'm going to ask you this to close out, social media. Where can they find you? We talked about the .com, but what about Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm Gail Treasure. Yeah, and that, like, it is my name. It's not a fake name. It's funny. It's kind of a memorable name. And yeah, there's only one me, I think.
Well, there should be, and there is only one. So Gail Treasure is where you can find it. GailTreasure. Website and all.
Right.
Just Google search Gail Treasure. You'll find her. And pre-order the book while you're at it. Because I did it. You should do it. We should all do it, people. So definitely. And Gail, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Once I get the book, read it. We have to have get some others too and have a book club conversation live on the air. I feel like we need to have that. I feel that
that would be great. Invite an escort or something. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh, exactly. I feel that is in our future, Gail. We should do it.
Awesome. It's been so great talking to you. But this is like one of the most fun things about this process, about this part of it. It's just getting to meet people you're hundreds and you're thousands of miles away from me, and here we are chatting. It's been great.
Not only that, Gail, I love the connection. I love the passion that comes out of your voice when you talk about your book. I love the journey that you have taken upon yourself, not just as a teacher, but now as an author, putting this out there. It is a very vulnerable situation that you are embracing full on. And again, I have to give you your flowers, give you credit where credit's due, and give you the support that I feel like you deserve. Because, it's not easy. I know this for you to be able to get this out for the people is inspiring. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. GailTreasure.com is the website. And thank you very much for taking the time out. Gail, you and I will definitely talk. I will follow you on all your social medias, and I will tag you. Once this goes up to Spotify and all the other major podcast networks. And thank you. You're gonna see now. I feel like I need to go to the library. Go to the library.
It's a happy place. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Gail. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the #1 radio station for the people.